aspect. We like the prevention aspect of protecting our chattel, which really kind of comes into computer network security. This has been codified under the Electronic Communication Privacy Act. It basically says if you own a network, you can defend it. And that's not eavesdropping or illegally obtaining electronic communications. And it comes under what we, as attorneys like to try to be cute. And we say, 2511 sub 2 little a little I. We don't have a lot of fun in the world, so we try to laugh wherever we can. And so what we're talking about for computer network security is an aspect of multiple disciplines make up computer security. And so you'll have cops, you'll have intelligence, you have network operations certs. And depending on what happens, people can have, jurisdiction over the thing. So, if I've got an incident in which one of my sensors pops for porn, I've got, a violation of company policies, so certain NetOps and NOS are going to be involved. But I've also got a crime. So I've got an aspect of, I got a possible crime, I should say. Because when I pick up the phone and I call the cops and I say, one of my sensors just popped for porn, what's the first thing they say? Is it child porn? I don't know. I didn't look at it. So I hang up the phone. I call the sysads up. Hey, guys, was it child porn? They say, I don't know. We didn't look at it, which is a lie. Because when porn pops, they go and look at it immediately because, what the hell? So they go and look at it and make it look good. And then they call me back and say, no, it wasn't child porn. And the cops are gone. So it's no longer a law enforcement action. It's now just a company action. So a lot of people have jurisdiction over what they want to do for this. So what are we talking about? We're talking about, from some aspect, getting the attribution on some level. When my first guys told me, computer network security has nothing to do with attribution, I fell out of my chair and whacked my head on the wall really well. And when I woke up, shaking my head, I said, what the hell are you talking about? It's not about attribution. And they go, I don't need to know the person who's attacking me. I don't care for computer network security who's attacking me. I need to know what the vulnerability is so I can defend against that and stop that from coming at me. Who's attacking me? That's a law enforcement or an intelligence function. From a computer network security profession, I don't care. I'm going to pass that off to somebody else to do. I'm concerned about just protecting against that vulnerability. Give me your question again.
If this policy states that you may monitor or you do or popping,
right. Don't be inconsistent with that. Okay. I don't want to forget. Again, there's the statute. It has to be a necessary incident. And this is what I was talking about a little bit before. Come on, pal. This is why problem with letting my son use my thing here. All right. It's a service provider exception. It's not a criminal license. When you do your computer network security, there has to be a reasonable nexus to what you're doing in terms of your monitoring. It's not unlimited for whatever you want to do. Getting ready just to use the damn buttons. All right. And this is what I said before. In that Commonwealth versus Helms, back in the blue box cases when they tried to get the hackers of phones, companies were monitoring like the first 6 to 20 seconds of the phone conversation, got their information and punched off. In this case, they recorded the entire conversation and the court threw it out because there wasn't a reasonable nexus for what they needed the information for. So now they were illegally obtaining information in violation of the Electronic Communication Privacy Act. So it has to have a reasonable nexus. If I find out what the fraud is, who the person is, I can punch off the line. I don't need to listen to the entire conversation now. For computer security, how do you do that? Where's that vulnerability coming in? Is it coming in at the beginning of the three-way handshake, the middle of the three-way handshake, or the end of the three-way handshake? And that's what causes the challenge for what reasonable network management is. I've thrown the Comcast case up there when they were taking care of some of the peer-to-peer stuff on that. Again, because it's a great case to read when you're talking about what is reasonable network management. You have on your network that you own, you can. What's the boundary of that ownership? Yeah, that's a good question. I was wondering if we were getting there. Come on, man. All right. The boundary on that one, how we monitor. So I'm going to take time to get back to your question on this one. To do this monitoring from a workplace aspect, and we're going to go here, then here, I've got to have, basically the best way to do it is you get the consent of your users so that you can monitor, which means you have banners. There is, the shrink wrap, clicking, browsing. the aspect of actively clicking on something to get to the next screen or just getting to the next screen, you wouldn't believe how many dollars in lawyers you guys wasted in tax money from federal government attorneys arguing about this. Oh, no, they got to click an agreement. Oh, no, you can just go right by it. No, they got to click on the agreement because it's a positive step that they saw the banner right there. Nobody reads it. We all know that, but at least they had to click on it. I agree to get through it. So now they've got notice that you've got a banner on there that the system's going to be monitoring. Now you got to pick the right wording for what you're doing. All things will be monitored. You have no expectation of privacy. We will read this. It's an interesting aspect, but as you're dealing with this, and if you're dealing from the technical side with your policy folks, you got to lock this down in terms of having an airtight policy for it. User training goes back to if you haven't ever monitored, if you haven't ever looked at it, you've never looked at anything, and all of a sudden you do it, yeah, you're probably going to have a problem. I mean, the court's going to say, yes, you have the policy, nobody knew about it, and there are cases out there that said, yes, you have the policy, you never sent it back out again, you never had any refresher training on it, so you can't just say, okay, I'm going to throw it down and use it now because you've never enforced it. From now, a couple aspects of it. You know, the government clearly cannot enforce it against one person because you're targeting an individual from that aspect of it. So the government has problems with that. From an employer aspect of life, yeah, I can't. But this is where you start getting into the battle of the experts, where you're going to bring in your sysads and say, okay, you know, monitoring, what's that involve? Well, we've got sensors on here. We're looking for things to pop up from that aspect, and what happened here. You know, and typically these cases are always, you know, pouring cases because that's what the sensor's popping off on, and so that's what you're getting it. And then, you know, the discharge of the employee goes from not so much the misuse of the policy as to it's an age discrimination, or it's, you know, some kind of a workplace complaint, so now you've got an employment aspect of it. But you're absolutely correct. If you have a policy, a key to it is enforcing it, making sure there's knowledge about it, awareness, repetitive training on it. The user agreements are consistent. For our aspects, we have web policies, which is that outward-facing web policy to tell users coming in, hey, you know, this site's monitored using software for computer security purposes, who we're going to share the information with. We got to get rid of that expectation of privacy so we can monitor it. How do I monitor it? How far can I monitor it? I should save this for the cyber war aspect of life. But this is the aspect of what you own and where you go up to is what you can monitor. Once you go out, you're now, and words are getting thrown out and mixed up all over the place. You're now into an active defense, and there's some aspects in terms of what's an active defense. Scott Moulton, who owned, I can't remember what his company was doing some security testing for a company, and he was pinging on a system. And they said it caused a denial attack on it, and he went to court. I can't remember if it was civil, or I think it was a civil action on it because there's some problems with it. And the court said there's no testimony that actual pinging, because no one spoke to it, was actually slowing down or causing a defect or a diminished latency in the system, slowing down. There's been a couple cases that have bounced back and forth on the Intel case of the guy flooding with emails on whether the system actually suffered any kind of detriment, slowing down, going back and forth. But on the safe side of it is defense is monitoring what you own inside your network. Going outside of that is starting to become an active defense, and if you're going to do that, get involved with your attorneys early and often. Yes?
Well, how do you think that's going to relate with the current New Jersey case with who monitoring
Webcams?
webcams in people's homes? Where's the boundary?
Where's that boundary? Oh, that was clearly illegal. I mean, I rarely, I usually, here's the law, blah, here's what the case said, here's what plaintiff said, I usually try to stay in that realm of the world on life and that, but that's an aspect where I'd be settling that case so damn fast, yes.
Where is the boundary for personal equipment that's in your home, that's your property, but utility, your cable provider or electric company is in your premise area, who has the servicing stuff out, or unless you go off the grid and do your own.
Depending on where you're going with that question from that aspect, and I hate them, I stay away from them, but it's going to be your EULAs. I mean, to say where that boundary is, if I'm an attorney that gets into case of that where there's going to be a debate on that. I'm going to be looking at the